Welcome back, class. Today we are going to be talking about cooking. This is not going to have any recipes in it, and we're just going to be covering the basics. And remember that this video is geared towards players who don't use the marketplace, but there will be information in here that anyone can use. But just remember that not everything is going to apply to people who use the marketplace. With that said, let's get into it. So first off, let's talk about why you should cook. Cooking is needed for some very important things. The first reason is you can cook stuff to keep your workers fed so that they can keep gathering resources for you. And the second reason is cooking is used to get buffs. And this is just extremely important for literally every aspect of the game, life skilling, combat, everything. So it's just one of the most important life skills in the game. So let's talk about cooking utensils. These are your tool for cooking essentially. And the way that you get them is, there's a few ways, so let's talk about them all. So first off, you can get them from some NPCs for pretty cheap. They're going to be the cook NPCs that you buy random ingredients from. David Vinto is one example, he's the one in Velia, but there's one in pretty much every single city. These utensils though are extremely bad, so only use them if you're barely starting out. Otherwise, you're going to want to move on to Advanced, Supreme, or Morning Light utensils as soon as possible. And the reason for this is instead of having +8 to the cooking time, these have -1. So it's extremely important you use these. As for these three that I just listed, they're pretty much all the same. It's just a different way to obtain them, and they have different durabilities. Advanced has the least durability, Morning Light has the next, and then Supreme has the most. These should not be that hard for you to get. I have so many of them. They're commonly obtained through events. You can get them from Black Spirit Adventure, but they can also be crafted or exchanged. So for the advanced cooking utensil, you can spend 300 loyalties to get one, or you can craft it in a Tool Workshop 3. To make it, it's 20 polished stone, 5 usable scantling, 20 melted iron shards, and 14 blackstone powder. For the Morning Light, you can exchange it for 100 Song Peon coins, or you can craft it for 80 polished stone, 20 standardized timber squares, 20 iron ingots, and 40 fire horns. The Supreme utensil is the only one that you cannot craft, but it is obtained through the currency tab mainly. You can exchange it for 40 Resplendent Medal of Honors, 500 Imperial Cooking Seals, or 15 Dark Spirits Greed. You can also exchange them in Mountain of Eternal Winter for 25 Oxider Crystals. These are obtained through Mountain of Eternal Winter dailies. Honestly, I don't think you're really going to have to craft them. You should just be getting them from events and the Black Spirit Adventure and stuff like that, so I wouldn't worry too much about it, but if you need it, the information is here. For these higher tier tools, you can also get repair tools. Now, to get these repair tools, you're going to need the actual cooking utensil, and if you right-click it and press NPC location, it will take it to someone who can exchange it for a repair tool. Now, the reason you would want to do this is because they're stackable. Instead of having a bunch of cooking utensils taking up tons of space in your storages, you can have it all take up one spot instead. So I would suggest doing that with pretty much all of your utensils except for the ones you're actually using, and then you can just go press F5 on the utensil when it's in your residence, and you can repair it there. Now let's talk about actually using the cooking utensil. So the first step is you need to buy a residence in any town. I suggest you get this as close to a storage as possible, so any residence that's really close to a storage will work. To place the utensil, go into place mode while you're inside your residence, click on the utensil, drag it to where you want it, click, and then press confirm. And then to use the utensil, you just press R. And then you're going to add your ingredients that you need. Remember that you only add enough ingredients for one batch, even if you have a batch that you're going to cook 50 of. You're going to add enough for one, and then you can select how many times you're going to cook that. So make sure that you don't add all the ingredients in. It's only the ones to make one. Now let's talk about level and mastery for your cooking. Your level is going to be important because it allows you to cook different recipes. The higher your level, the more recipes you can cook. Mastery is pretty important too, as it increases the odds of making the maximum amount of dishes. It also increases the chance of mass cooking, which is going to give you 10 times the rewards, but it also costs 10 times the materials, so it doesn't really do much except speed things up. It also increases the odds of getting higher tier dishes. So for example, if you're making beer, you can sometimes get cold draft beer that heals a little bit more for your workers, so they're slightly better. And then lastly, it makes Imperial trade boxes sell for more. Now let's talk about your gear. Your goal is to get your cook time down to 1 second. So in your slots that don't give you bonuses to cook time, such as your accessories, go for straight mastery. If you need a guide on mastery accessories, check out the mastery guide in the description. For your clothes though, I actually don't suggest you use Manos. I highly suggest you use the silver embroidered cook's clothes. If you do, however, get your cooking time down to 1 second without the use of silver embroidered clothes, 100% you should be using Manos, but otherwise silver embroidered are better. To make the silver embroidered clothes, you need to make them at a level 1 costume mill. It costs 9 cotton, 10 powder of earth, and 15 blackstone powder. You will need to make a bunch of these as they act the same as accessories when it comes to enhancing, and you cannot use cronstone, so you need to use pretty decent stacks. If it fails, both the items explode, just like in accessory enhancing, so just be careful and be aware of that. You're going to need to make a lot of these if you're doing it all by yourself without the market, and it kind of sucks, but it's totally worth it. Now let's say you do have your cooking speed maxed out, then you're going to want to use Manos clothes. To get these, you get 15 indigo lapis lazuli, 10 Manos stones, 15 dawn fallen silk, and 10 fundamentals of cooking, which are obtained through some cooking daily quests. There is also a pearl outfit called the Canape set that gives you -2 on your cooking time, so this is really good to get, but it does cost pearl, so if you are free to play, then this isn't going to be an option for you, but otherwise, this is a really good one to buy. Now let's talk about your artifacts and lightstones. Your options for your artifacts is going to be General Life EXP, General Mastery, Cooking Experience, and Cooking Mastery. While Mastery is really good to have, I actually prefer the experience bonuses until you get to Master 1. And the reason for that is when you hit Master 1, you will have every recipe unlocked. So until you hit that point, I would suggest using the Life EXP instead of Mastery. Also, for after Master 1, if you're not hitting a multiple of 50 in your Mastery, due to how brackets work, I suggest you just switch to EXP because you only get bonuses every 50 mastery. So if it's not going to push you over a multiple of 50, switch it out for the EXP stuff. Now for your lightstones, the only really good one is gonna be the set effect called the Fundamentals of Cooking. So to get this, you need a Lightstone of Flora Secret, a Lightstone of Flora Stir, a Lightstone of Wind Feather, and an Iridescent Lightstone. This gives a mastery, experience, -2 seconds on cooking time, and some weight limit. If you don't have the Lightstone of Flora's Stir, you could do 3 Lightstone of Flora's Secrets and an Iridescent for the excellent chef effect, which gives you cooking experience. And if you don't have an Iridescent, just use as many Lightstone of Flora's Secrets as you have. Next up, let's talk about your crystal sets. My recommendation is just going for Vital Crystals in every single one of your slots until you get up to 2k Mastery. If you somehow are up at that Mastery level, then I would suggest using Life Crystals for experience. Also, if you're gonna not be put below a multiple of 50 on your Mastery, I would take out as many Vital Crystals as you can to put in Life Crystals. If all of those are out of your price range though, just use Dim Magic Crystal Lives, and weight limit also will help you cook a little bit longer per time that you have to go to your storage. So you can do weight limit as well. Now let's talk about what buffs you should be going for. While there are exceptions that we will talk about in a second, you generally should be going for 1 second cooking time, then be going for 2000 mastery, then go for life experience. If you are power leveling, like if you're going to Master 1 like I suggest, I would switch out the mastery for the life EXP if you're cooking just like random things like pickled vegetables. If you are cooking something with like super limited resources though, you don't really need the cooking speed, and I would just try to max out your mastery as much as possible. But this isn't really that worth it because it saves a lot of time to not do this. But if you're only cooking like 1 or 2 meals of something and you don't have a lot of resources, max out your mastery. Now that we talked about what to shoot for in terms of your stats, let's talk about what buffs can help you achieve this. So for your food buff, the seafood cron meal is going to be your best bet. This gives mastery and it gives you time off your cooking. If you can't get that, make a teff bread or teff sandwich. Either one of those are going to work. The sandwich is a little bit better than the bread, but if you can't make either of those, then there really isn't a food buff that you can use. For your alchemy stones, I highly suggest you use anything that's going to get off cooking time. So for the top tier thing, it's going to be anything that is a sharp alchemy stone of life or higher tier. If you don't have those though, because those are pretty annoying to get, you could use a Khan's Heart Life. And if you can't get that, go for a Spirit Stone of Life. And if you don't want to use that and would rather use a rechargeable stone, the Trance tier is fine. For your elixir buff, I would suggest you use the Verdure Draft. This is slightly expensive, but this is one of the things I actually use consistently while I'm cooking because it saves so much time. Next up, let's talk about tiers of ingredients. Now this only applies to things that you get from the farming life skill, but you can get high quality and special tier ingredients. Now these can be substituted for normal ingredients, and you can use less of them. One green ingredient counts for up to 3 to 4 white tier ingredients. So if it calls for 4 potatoes, you could use 1 high quality potato. Your special tier is going to count for 5 to 8. And this is actually extremely complicated. So sometimes you can't substitute 8 normal things for 1 blue tier. It's really, really complicated. If you want a deep dive, there's a video linked in the description by Summer. And it's really interesting, but it's also super in-depth, and I don't want to get into it. But just know that if the substitution doesn't work, just try adding 1 more and it should work. There are also substitutions across different groups. So, for example, a lot of recipes will call for wheat, but you could actually substitute that out for any other grain, such as corn or potatoes. To check out these item groups, just search up your ingredient on BDO Codex and click item group whatever. It's usually a 4-digit long thing. But be aware that some recipes don't allow for substitution, so you need to check every specific recipe. Okay, I think that's all of the basics out of the way, so let's talk about cooking ingredients and how to get them. A lot of ingredients are going to be obtained through buying them from vendors. So all your salt, sugars, oils, cooking wine, mineral water, base sauce, and leavening agent are all bought through your average cooking vendors. These vendors are usually located inside of inns in every town. In Velia, the vendor's name is David Finto. There are also different vendors that sell fruits and vegetables. And the one that I use is Milano Bellucci in Calvion, and she sells fruits and vegetables that you can substitute for a lot of things. So she sells paprika as the vegetable, and strawberries are the cheapest fruit she sells. Another place you're going to get a lot of ingredients is from workers. I'm going to list off some important stuff that you should be getting from workers, and I'm going to say some specific nodes, but just know that you can substitute these nodes for anything that drops the same category of item. So if you want to gather wheat instead of potatoes, you can do that at any node. But the nodes that I use personally is Alejandro Farm for cooking honey. I also use Bartoli Farm for grain and chicken. Yeah, that's pretty much all. Everything else is gonna be specific to each cooking recipe, and we'll dive into that into later videos, but these 3 things are things that you probably should just be grabbing because they're used in so many different recipes. Another place you're gonna get a lot of ingredients from is farming. So you can plant vegetables, fruit, grain, and tons of other ingredients in your farms, but there also are some farming exclusive items that cannot be substituted in cooking, and these ones are the ones that you for sure are going to need to grow, and I would maybe suggest growing some grain and some other stuff as well, but these 4 things are the things you actually really need to get, and so that's going to be pepper, hot peppers, onion, and garlic. You can get these in small quantities from some repeatable quests every day, but farming, in my opinion, is kind of the only real way to get it. Another thing that I highly suggest you farm, while it's not exclusive to farming, is really annoying to get, is milk. So you just put a haystack in your farming plot and you'll get milk. Lastly, you're going to be getting quite a few ingredients from hunting or just killing mobs with normal weapons and then butchering them. This is where you're going to get all your meat and all your blood. If you need any information on farming, workers, or hunting, just check the description for those guides. So I do want to give you guys a couple recipes that you should probably be going for just to level up and to keep your workers going. We are going to go into much deeper dives for things like cron meals and stuff like that. So for your easy things to cook, I suggest you do grilled bird meat and pickled vegetables. Those are kind of the two best things that you can do. So the grilled bird meat is going to be what you're feeding to your workers. To make it, you need 2 chicken meat, which you're going to get from your workers. And then from the vendors, you get 6 deep frying oil, 1 salt, and 2 cooking wine. Pretty easy to make. And then if you're trying to level up your cooking, I suggest making pickled vegetables because you only have to use 1 grain to get quite a bit of XP. And to make it, you need to make a vinegar first, which is where you use your 1 grain. So this is potato, wheat, corn, etc. 1 strawberry that you buy from Milano Bellucci. And then from your normal cooking vendors, you're going to buy 1 leavening agent and 1 sugar. And this is to make your vinegar. And then you're going to actually make the vegetables. And to do this, you're going to get 8 paprika from the same vendor that you got the strawberries at. You're going to use 4 of the vinegar that you just made. And then from the normal cooking vendor, you need 2 sugar and 2 leavening agent. And that's it. Now let's talk about Imperial trading. We're not going to go into too much depth about this, but just remember that you can't do this if you're tagged. To create boxes, all you need to do is press L and select Imperial Cuisine, then put the food in and press start. You can also speed this up if you have Artisan 1 processing. You need to do a quest for Carolyn and Heidel, and she'll let you buy some heavy duty packaging cord, which lets you do 10 at a time instead of 1 at a time. So it's 10 times faster. You then take these boxes to an Imperial delivery NPC and you sell them. Make sure that you have as much mastery as possible for this because the amount of money you get is based on your mastery, and you can only sell a certain amount of these per day. The last thing I want to talk about is the byproduct of cooking, which is called the Witch's Delicacy. You can trade these in with Liana at every single major city, and the exchanges are 10 or 500 beer, 120 milk, or some contribution and cooking XP. I personally always exchange for milk because milk is such a pain to get, so I would suggest that. And I think that's going to be all for this guide. Let me know if you have any questions, and if I missed anything or if I messed up any of the information, I will correct that in a pinned comment. Anyway though, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time for the big one. We're gonna go over simple cron meals.